Meet Frank. He's a father of 4, but since his wife passed away, his golden years have felt incredibly lonely. A lifetime spent coding high-voltage electrical cables has left him with chronic pulmonary fibrosis, and now, he relies on medication just to manage each day. In the 8 months since his wife's funeral, not one of his children has come home. His only solace is tending to his garden and clinging to the hope of a family reunion during the holidays. With another Thanksgiving rolling around, Frank goes all out. He heads to the supermarket and buys the best steaks, finest wine, and even splurges on a brand new grill, his heart full of anticipation for a grand family feast. But as the day turns into night, his hope dwindles with each phone call. One by one they cancel. His youngest son, Robert, says things aren't great right now. His eldest daughter, Amy, has to work and take care of her sick son. His youngest daughter, Rosie, is busy with rehearsals for a big dance performance. And David, his eldest son, the one he worries about most, doesn't even call himself. He has Amy pass along the message. The enormous house feels empty, and a crushing sense of disappointment washes over him. Looking at the old man in the mirror, he makes a bold decision. If his children won't come to him, he'll go to them. A spontaneous trip to visit each of them in their 4 different cities. Before he leaves, his doctor strongly advises against long-distance travel, given his lung condition. Frank just nods and agrees, then goes straight home and starts packing. He grabs a camera and 4 letters, one for each child, his heart once again filled with hope as he embarks on this 1,000-mile journey to reconnect. First stop, New York City, home to his eldest son, David. On the train, Frank proudly tells the woman sitting next to him all about his kids. Robert, the orchestra conductor, David, the painter, Rosie, the famous dancer, and Amy, the ad executive. He says with a swell of pride, "It was the 1,000,000 feet of wire that I coded that made my kids who they are today." But when Frank arrives at David's apartment late at night, hoping for a surprise reunion, his knocks are met with silence. Again and again, no answer. He spots a painting in a nearby gallery window with David's signature, and it sends him spiraling back into a memory.
What are you going to do when you grow up, huh?
I want to be a painter and do my pictures.
Not a painter. Christ, painters paint walls and dogs pee on walls. You're going to be an artist. Artists paint pictures that change people's lives. So what are you going to be?
An artist.
That's right, an artist. So you're going to work hard?
Yes, Dad.
You're going to make me proud?
I'm trying, Dad.
Frank waits at the apartment until the next morning, but David never shows. Defeated, he slides the letter under the door and heads to his next stop. Second stop, Chicago, home of his eldest daughter, Amy. She's a high-powered ad executive with a beautiful home. The door is opened by his grandson, Jack, who seems both surprised and distant. It's immediately clear there's tension in the marriage between Amy and her husband, Jeff. The air is thick with awkwardness, and Jack is openly hostile toward his own father. Frank suggests staying for a couple of days, but the family quickly makes excuses work. A business trip, a training camp insisting they have no time to spend with him. Frank sees through the lies but doesn't call them out, graciously deciding to leave the next day. Before he goes, they take a family portrait that screams forced smiles. After leaving Amy's, Frank travels to Denver to see his youngest son, Robert. He always believed Robert was the conductor of a symphony orchestra, but when he finds the rehearsal space, he discovers his son is just a drummer. Facing his father's visible disappointment, Robert confesses that he never claimed to be a conductor. Perhaps it was something their mother said to make Frank happy. He explains that he's content with his free-spirited life as a drummer and has no desire to chase someone else's definition of success just to meet his father's expectations. Robert then claims he has to leave for a European tour and can't spend time with him. Feeling another sting of rejection, Frank leaves the letter on Robert's drum kit and quietly departs. On his way to the final stop, a time zone mix-up causes Frank to miss his bus. In an underpass, he kindly offers $10 to a homeless man, but his charity is met with greed. The man tries to snatch his wallet. During the struggle, Frank's bottle of life-saving medication falls to the ground. In a final act of cruelty, the man intentionally stomps on the bottle, shattering it before running off. With his medicine destroyed, exhausted, and overwhelmed with disappointment, Frank feels a surge of panic. He finds a payphone and dials his late wife's number, just to hear the sound of her voice on the answering machine. a desperate search for a moment of comfort. A kind truck driver helps him catch his train, and after swallowing the last of his powdered medicine, he falls into a deep sleep. Final stop, Las Vegas, to see his youngest daughter, Rosie. She pulls out all the stops, picking him up in a stretch limo and taking him to a luxurious apartment, even arranging dinner at a fancy restaurant. But Frank soon overhears a phone message and realizes it's all a charade. The car, the apartment, all rented just for his visit. That evening, a neighbor drops by with her baby, asking Rosie to babysit for a while. Seeing the pure joy on her father's face as he plays with the infant, Rosie can't help but smile. Late that night, the father and daughter have a heart-to-heart. Frank finally understands why his children always confided in their mother, not him. She was a listener, always accepting. He, on the other hand, was too strict, his expectations too high, inadvertently becoming a burden to them. He realizes he was especially hard on David, which is why David was the most afraid to disappoint him. With his life-saving medicine gone, Frank decides to fly home the next morning, but mid-flight, the plane hits a severe thunderstorm. The combination of turbulence and the lack of medication sends his lung condition into crisis, and he collapses in the lavatory. In his unconscious state, Frank dreams. He's sitting with all 4 of his children, and one by one, he calls out their lies. Amy's marriage has already fallen apart. Robert's band has no European tour. Their next gig is right there in Denver, and the neighbor's baby is actually Rosie's own daughter. They admit they hid the truth because, as they say, we just didn't want to disappoint you. When Frank asks about David, the son he misses the most, the dream version of David remains hauntingly silent. Frank wakes up in a hospital. His 3 children are at his bedside, but David is missing. Under his persistent questioning, they finally tell him the devastating truth. David died in Mexico from a drug overdose. After being discharged, Frank receives David's belongings from the police. He visits his wife's grave, pouring out his heart full of regret and pain. He reflects that if he could do it all over again, he would demand less and listen more. Sometime later, Frank returns to that New York gallery, hoping to buy David's painting, only to be told it's been sold. The gallery owner recognizes him and leads him to the storeroom to show him another of David's masterpieces. At the center of the canvas is a dense, intricate web of electrical wires, a depiction of Frank's life's work. It's only in this moment that Frank truly understands. His son was never disappointed in him. In his own way, he had affirmed his father's entire life of labor. Staring at the painting, a flood of emotions overcomes him, and tears stream down his face. Another Christmas arrives. This time, all 3 of his children, with their families, have come home to the old house. Frank goes to the supermarket once more, preparing a magnificent feast for them. As the family sits warmly around the dinner table, Frank glances out the window and imagines David's silhouette among them. He finally understands that as a father, you don't need your children to be dazzlingly successful. You just need them to be safe and sound.